Seldom has a guest been more appropriately welcome on a radio program that's called En Camino than the man who joins us now. Not only a consummate musician, he's a writer, a walker, and a mapper of trails. His hikes and expeditions have become the stuff of legends, none more so than the walk he took in March 2009, accompanied by no less than 14 dogs. He covered 1,200 kilometers in 7 weeks from Estepona to Sevilla to Santiago de Compostela on the Camino de Santiago itself. Patrick Elvin, welcome.
Well, thank you for that very flattering introduction. Very nice to be on your show.
De nada, hombre. It's where every word was meant, and every word is true. Patrick, before we embark on this extraordinary journey, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You've been living in Andalusia for a while, haven't you?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So I came here in 1997 with my wife to live here permanently, but I had come here with my parents in 1976 and bought a little house in a village called Giles in Malaga province. So I've been living here since 1997 in a little finca, which means a small holding just outside Giles with my wife and various animals over the years.
Oh, it sounds an absolute idyll. But you haven't been in your house the whole time or on the finca because you are an indomitable trailsman, aren't you? You walk a lot.
Well, I have walked a lot and been on various trails in Andalusia, including the GR7 and the GR48 and, of course, the Camino to Santiago.
Well, you've just published another walking guide, haven't you? Special walks in southern Andalusia.
Yes, I've published several books, all concentrating on Andalusia and particularly the southern parts, Cadiz province and Malaga province. There's plenty of walking around here, I can assure you. It's absolutely wonderful walking.
So how did the idea of walking the length of Spain with 14 dogs originate?
Well, it all came from a dog rescue shelter called Adana, which is just outside Estepona. And it was their idea to try and walk these dogs across Spain, publicizing the abandoned dogs problem that Spain has and still has, I think, and try and raise awareness of how you should be looking after dogs, not just leaving them in the streets abandoned. So the idea was to take these dogs across Spain with maximum publicity and hopefully raise money for the dog shelter and also raise awareness. That was the idea. And they just latched onto me as a sort of chap who'd done it before and was a experienced walker.
And was enthused by the project, no doubt. I mean, you have to be enthused to be able to take something like that on, don't you?
Well, we had to work out, to start with, how to get from Estepona to Seville, where the Via de la Plata, the proper pilgrimage route, starts. So we had to do a little bit of reconnaissance, which we did about 6 months before, with some dogs to make sure they could walk the long distances involved. And so I worked out a route from there to Estepona to Sevilla. And then the project was ready to get underway.
Yeah, no, and then from Sevilla you took the Camino de Santiago. The people normally assume it to be one of two routes that track east to west through the north of Spain. But actually there are a number of Caminos to Santiago, aren't there? There's one, and the one you took was the La Via de la Plata, which goes from Seville to Santiago. I mean, the history of that, how did that originate, that particular pilgrimage?
Originally, it was a Roman route. You know, when the Romans conquered Spain, they opened up various routes. And then, of course, in the Middle Ages, when the Santiago pilgrimage was sort of at its peak, these other routes opened up. And there was routes from Valencia, from Malaga, Granada. And the most recent route actually starts in a town called La Línea, just outside Gibraltar. Mm-hmm. It goes. Yeah, so now you can get to Sevilla by an official pilgrimage route. So as you say, there are absolutely loads of possibilities. The attraction of the Via de la Plata is it's pretty quiet route in terms of usage. If people are thinking about doing the pilgrimage, they will, as you say, automatically look at the northern routes, but they are hugely popular these days, especially in the peak season. It becomes a bit of a rat race, whereas this route from the south is very quiet, but also very beautiful and very varied.
Yes, I want to talk to you a bit about the landscape. But how amazing that you're treading in the path of Christian Romans. One forgets that the Romans were Christian, at least in the latter part of the Roman days. So they actually trekked to Santiago. The Romans they were pilgrims.
Slightly misunderstood me. I think the Romans originally built the various roads we're talking about, or the routes, and then the pilgrims adopted them later on in the Middle Ages when Santiago came to prominence in about the 9th or 10th centuries.
I see. Okay, so it wasn't actually an established pilgrimage route at the time of the Romans.
No, I mean, there's halfway up the route, there is in fact a Roman arch, quite an interesting monument. His name escapes me at the moment, but that's proof that it was a Roman route. And of course, it passes through Merida, which some people will know is a big Roman town with lots of Roman monuments. So it's got Rome steeped in its origins.
Yes. The walk itself, I mean, give us an idea of the variety of landscape that you traversed. You crossed huge rivers, didn't you?
Well, there's a story attached to that, but yeah, we crossed the various rivers going through Portugal, like the Tagus and the Douro. But they're obviously on ordinary bridges. But we're talking about wine-producing countries just south of Merida. We've got the Dehesa area, which is trees and grazing. You've got mountains towards the north. You've got open wheat growing areas just north of Salamanca. And you've got the rainy forested areas in Galicia. So you're going from sort of one climate to another almost, south of Spain, Sevilla, which is hot and dry, to the wet, green area of Galicia. So a wonderful contrast.
And you set off in early March, not too cold, not too hot. Did you get that right? The timing?
We think we got that right, yes. Spain is, as you can tell from the present weather, can range from boilingly hot to pretty cold in the winter, especially in the mountainous regions. You're talking about snowy areas. So March, April, May are the best times of the year to be walking. So we think we picked the right 2 months to do it in.
So, Patrick, tell us about the dogs. You were raising money for Adana, and the dogs were all from there. I mean, were they fit enough for the walk? And how did you take them? Were they on a leash the whole time?
Well, we had 14 altogether. I'm just trying to remember that there were 1 or 2 private dogs. I took my own dog, and there were a couple of other privately owned dogs, but the rest were from the dog shelter. They ranged from little sort of Scotty things, like ducks,
right,
that sort of stuff, big sort of Alsatians and Mastin type dogs. So a huge range. We had to keep them on the lead the whole time because they might run off.
Yes.
Or very embarrassing.
You could never let them off the leash.
So we kept them on the leash. Yeah, we had to really.
Right. Okay. And tell us.
We had the problem of accommodating them overnight.
Yeah, I want to talk about that a bit later. I want you to tell me about the people. We've talked about the dogs now. Tell us about the people, your compañeros. How many were there? Did you all get on? I mean, how did that work?
Well, it was a disparate, very varied group. We started with a core of 5 of us who did the whole route, and then week by week we changed over people who just joined for a week or 2 weeks. And we were a multi-international, so we had Norwegians, Americans, Spanish, English, various Germans, Austrians. We had a huge age range from 65 at the oldest down to 14 at the youngest. Mm-hmm. So we were a disparate group, but we seemed to get on pretty well. We all had one thing in common. And of course, we all loved dogs, so we had the joy of looking after the dogs on the way as well. So all in all, it was, although disparate, it was homogenous.
Yeah, I imagine that the stimulus of the sort of there must have been bonding to do such a walk together. You must it must have been very convivial in the evening, sitting
You have
around.
to share in the sort of pain and misery of getting the blisters and stiff legs, etc., etc. To the good company in the evenings, and we had a glass of wine or two.
Yeah, yeah. Now I gather you had two particularly fierce days at the beginning, right at the inception of the walk, before you even joined the Camino, for actually leaving Adana.
Yeah, we started off with I think 18 in the group of humans. We had to walk from Estepona to Galacine, which is a tough uphill struggle. And then the following day, we had to walk from Galacine to Ubrique, which took 11 hours. And the third day, there were only 10 of us left walking.
Not surprised. That was baptism by fire. I mean, how far is it? How far is it from Galacine to Ubrique?
It's about 35 kilometers, but it's over 2 mountain ranges. So there's a lot of climbing and heavy hill working to do.
So
the irony was that we had a very fit physical trainer who was the stepfather of the 14-year-old girl who came with us. The 14-year-old girl lasted the whole way to Seville, and the physical trainer dropped out after 2 days.
Oh,
so
how humiliating! Patrick, tell us about the logistics. I mean, this is a huge undertaking, and you must have had support on the way.
It was complicated. I mean, I was not in charge of the logistics. We had an excellent lady who was overall in charge, called Johanna Meyerhofer, an Austrian, who organised all the accommodation, which had to be booked in advance, although you're not supposed to on these Caminos. You're supposed to just turn up and take what's on offer. With a big group like that, we were made an exception of. So she booked all the accommodation, and the dogs had to be accommodated in cages, and I had a furniture removing trailer, which I lent to the organisation, and we converted that into 14 caged compartments, and the dogs slept in there very comfortably and
yeah, I would imagine they're quite grateful to get in there at the end of the day, sort of like exhausted.
All into their little bed and snuggle down and recover the next day. You're quite right. Yeah.
So you referred to the La Via de la Plata, the Camino de Santiago, being quite empty, but there were interesting people you met on the one or two, weren't there? On the way, other pilgrims.
Yes, there were other pilgrims. I've drawn to my mind a French couple who had the bad misfortune to encounter this great convoy of vehicles and dogs and people and stuff taking over the entire refugio for the night. And they sort of mildly complained, saying, look, you're rather disturbing our peace and quiet. So, well, sorry, we're on this schedule. Perhaps you'd like to delay a day or two or walk ahead of it. But they couldn't manage that. So about 3 days in a row, we ended up together. And they eventually told us to using the F word, that we nicknamed the fuck offs.
Right. Tell us about Narciso and the donkey. I love that story.
Yes, we met a charming man who is a Spanish retired businessman who made it his sort of retirement passion is to do as many pilgrimage routes as he could, in the company of a lovely donkey and his little dog, his mongrel terrier dog. He was called Narciso. He was probably about 65 to 70, and he was the most delightful company. We met him just outside Sevilla, so fairly early on, and he got on so well with us. He said, can I walk with you the whole way? So he did walk most of the way, and he was great company, and the donkey was charming as well as the dog.
Oh, how lovely! So, lovely. Did he ride the donkey, Narciso?
No. He used the donkey to carry his sort of provisions. He had to carry dog food and donkey food and his own belongings. So it was a pack donkey rather than a riding donkey.
Right. I was glad the donkey was making a contribution.
Yeah,
Patrick, the worst day and the best day of that 7-week trip, what sticks in your mind?
A couple of the worst days spring to mind. I mean, we were very, very lucky with the weather overall, but when we got further north, around about Easter time, we hit some pretty nasty weather, including a whole day of snow, heavy snow, which we had to walk through because we had the schedule. We was all booked up. So walking for a whole day in the snow, slush, and miserable, cold conditions, but not a day. It's a fond memory. And probably the other bad day was we had to, unfortunately, ask one of our members of the group to leave because of a bit of a dispute, and that was a bit of a sad day. The best day was probably when we arrived at the end, because we had a wonderful welcome into Santiago, because the Franciscan church, San Francisco, organised a very special mass to be sent to us for the dogs and for us in the church just alongside the main Santiago church, with all the dogs present in the church and the rest of the group obviously as well.
Oh,
so that was a fantastic day.
That's San Francisco of Assisi, who loved animals. That was his church.
So it's absolutely appropriate.
And all the dogs came as well into the church.
Dogs were all in. Yeah, I can't say they actually behaved impeccably. One of the dogs couldn't wait to go to the loo. Emptied his bladder all over the floor.
Well, inevitably, I shouldn't think it was the first. Shouldn't think it was the first time a dog had pissed in the San Francisco church.
Before him.
Yeah. And that was your last day. I mean, that must have been emotional arriving in Santiago de Compostela.
And some of us had our loved ones to meet us, and a celebration meal, and it was all worked really well.
Oh, lovely.
We got our Costellas as well, which is our certificates you get signed off by the people in the pilgrimage office.
Yes.
You've done the route and everything, and all the dogs got special certificates themselves as well.
Oh, the dogs got certificates as well. Oh, brilliant.
Yes, and my dog Dido got a certificate, and she was a particularly strong dog for the walk, and great company to have on the walk.
Yeah, lovely to take your own dog. But tell me, Patrick, in conclusion, what happened to the dogs? Well, I suppose you had 12. You had 12 dogs, did you, from Adana?
Well, I think there were probably 11 of the rescue dogs. The happy ending was that one of our aims for the pilgrimage was to try and find homes for these 11 dogs, either on the way or afterwards. And by the end of the walk, we had found homes for every single one. And one or two of the group adopted dogs they've been looking after. So that's one way. And then others who've been on the walk, who left the walk during the route after their week or so, had booked a dog to adopt, and they were sent to the countries like the UK or Austria, I think, one or two of them. So they all found homes to go to. So that was a very, very, very happy ending in that respect.
That's a perfect ending, isn't it? I mean, how grim would it have been to have had to take the dog back to Adana?
Well, we had to take, obviously, we had the trailer anyway, so we took 3 or 4 back to Adana who've been adopted but need to be sent off.
From there, yes, but they had a future.
They had homes to go to.
Yeah. Patrick, absolutely wonderful story, and I do thank you for coming on the program to tell us about it.
It's been an absolute pleasure, sort of reminiscing and being able to talk and spread the news to a wider audience. So thank you for having me.
I have to ask you before you leave: did you keep a journal? Is there a possibility you might write this one day?
Well, I was one of the people who didn't keep a journal. I know my friend Mike Turnbull he's a very good writer. He was on the walk and he kept a very detailed journal. And also my friend Jackie Scott, who also did the whole walk, she was speaking to her a couple of days ago, and she's got a diary of the event. So I think I should encourage Mike Turnbull to publish it, because it's quite a story.
I think you should. I think it's wonderful and inspirational. And
nice to be appreciated by yourself.
Sorry.
It's nice to be appreciated by yourself.
Oh, I'm sure everyone listening will be appreciating this story. Patrick, Elvin, and Camino, thank you so much for joining us.
Absolute pleasure.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye now.